I see some.
Joel.
Yeah, there's. Okay. Oh, we're being recorded. Okay. So this is the May 25th meeting of the Board of Waterworks Trustees. We have a consent agenda today that includes minutes of the April 27th Board of Waterworks Trustees meeting, minutes of the May 4th Planning Committee meeting, minutes of the May 4th Customer Relations Committee meeting, financial statements, list of payments for April 2021, a summary of CEO approved expenditures in excess of $20,000, and our next meeting date, which will be in person, live and in person for June 22nd, 2021. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Ted, do you have anything you want to mention or pull out here?
Nothing to pull out, Graham, unless there are questions.
All right. Any questions or comments on this? Hearing and seeing none. Michelle, can I ask you to record the vote?
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Moines.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So this period of our meeting where we permit public comment, is there anyone here from the public who wishes to address the board? I don't see anyone. Michelle, you don't see anybody there, do you?
I agree. No one unfamiliar on the call.
All right, great. So we will move on to item 3A. Item 3A is the Asphaltic Concrete Surface Patch Contract 2021-2022. This looks straightforward, but Ted, I'll ask you to explain it before I get a motion.
Graham, you are correct. Very straightforward. This is something we do on an annual basis. We bid asphalt patching for the street holes that we do, primarily water distribution, main breaks, valve repairs, that kind of thing. And we bid same quantities year over year, so we can kind of get the tracking on the price. We had a little bit of an increase this year, 13% compared to last year. It bounces around a little bit, but we were expecting kind of the post-pandemic bump on this one. There's asphalt prices are very tied to fuel consumption, and some interesting things happening with reduced gasoline and jet fuel production, resulting in less raw material, blah, blah, blah. So the bottom line is we've gotten a price from a contractor we've used many times. We think it's a good price, and we would recommend that the board award the contract to Hills Brothers.
So what I'm looking for is a motion to award the Asphaltic Concrete Surface Patch Contract for 2021-2022 to Hill Brothers in the amount of $212,000. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Moved by Joel and a second. Any comments or questions on this? Hearing and seeing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Moines.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, which moves us to item 3B. We're moving from asphalt to concrete, the concrete contract 2021-2022. Ted?
Another fairly straightforward item, Graham. This is another contract that we bid on an annual basis. Small increase this year, about 5% total increase over last year. CTI was our supplier in 2020. They are, again, the low bidder, and we would recommend that the board award the concrete contract to CTI.
So I'm looking for a motion to award the 2022 concrete contract to CTI Ready Mix in the amount of $255,100. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Got a motion from Diane and a second?
Second.
A second from Joel. Any comments or questions on item 3B?
I'm sorry, Ted, I missed it. What kind of an increase did you say we're seeing in concrete?
Overall, Diane, the increase is about 5%.
Okay.
The only item they changed their price on was the actual per yard price for concrete.
Okay.
Went from $130 to $137. All the other bid items actually stayed the same. So fairly modest increase actually this year.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
yes,
Muns.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, that moves us to item 3C, and this is the acceptance of the 2020 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 2, East Douglas Avenue. Ted?
Yeah, Graham, we've had a couple of jobs out on East Douglas. One that we just approved award of. This was the one that we did last year, trying to get out ahead of the city's upcoming construction. And we laid some new water main in there. We had one small change order on the job related to conflict with some existing utilities, but it was small in comparison to the contract price, and the final cost actually ended up being less than the original cost, even with that small change order, because of some differences in quantities that we realized through the construction. But the job is done, and staff would recommend that the board accept the contract that was completed by SM Henches and Sons.
And I think you said this, Ted, but this is appropriately the 2020 contract. This is just filing, and we're finalizing that, correct?
That's correct. It's finishing up one we started last year.
Perfect. So what I'm looking for is a motion to accept the 2020 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 2, East Douglas Avenue, completed by SM Henches and Sons in the amount of $632,517.62. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
So moved by Joel. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Andrew seconds. Any comments or questions on this item? Hearing and seeing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
yes,
Muns.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right, moving on right along, this is a speedy meeting, which item 3D, request authorization to reimburse the city of Des Moines for water main relocations for Western Ingersoll Run Sewer Separation Phase 2. Ted?
Graham, this is a pretty good sized project for the city. Ingersoll Run is a large box sewer that's been in existence forever. And they're separating the storm from the sanitary. There's the map. You can kind of see it's Western Ingersoll Run, but the work is actually all north of the freeway and kind of in the neighborhood between 30th and 45th. We're going to have a number of alterations related to this contract as it moves throughout that area. This project has already been bid by the city, and based on the unit prices in that contract, our cost will be $260,000 or $296,000, a little bit more. We're requesting that the board authorize staff to reimburse the city of Des Moines for those alterations once they're complete.
So what I'm looking for is a motion to authorize staff to reimburse the city of Des Moines for water main relocations included in the Western Ingersoll Run Sewer Separation Phase 2 project. Is there a motion to that effect?
so moved,
And a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Anybody have a question? It looked like Sue was considering something. Maybe she's just looking pensive. Hearing no other questions or smart comments, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Muns.
Yes.
I jumped all the way to the bottom. Bolton,
I know.
I got thrown off there. I was afraid I missed my name. Yeah.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard.
yes,
Thank you all.
Right.
Thanks, Michelle. It was wonderful to go second.
I know.
It's just not fair that I always get to go first, or have to, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
Item 3E is request authorization to execute the termination of Third Amendment to Water Service Enhancement Agreement with Waukee. Ted, I think you'll want to explain this one.
Yeah, I do, Graham. This is another little bit of cleanup that we need to do. The board will recall that we recently brought the Fifth Amendment to the Water Service Agreement with Waukee forward for approval. We were clarifying ownership of the Waukee Booster Station with that Fifth Amendment. But as we were going through the process of executing that Fifth Amendment, we realized that the Third Amendment, which was no longer in force, had never been terminated. And so to keep the paper trail clean and to ensure a clear understanding by all parties involved, especially at a point when the parties who were originally involved are no longer here, thought it important to bring this back to the board and officially terminate that Third Amendment. The Third Amendment actually involved Des Moines Waterworks providing meter reading services to Waukee. We did that for a period of time, both water and natural gas meters. But they have since taken that responsibility back upon themselves. We haven't done it for a number of years, but that Third Amendment was still out there. So both we and the Waukee staff thought it appropriate to terminate that officially. They have done so. The partially executed termination is in the packet, and we're requesting permission from the board or authorization from the board to execute that termination of the Third Amendment.
So I'm looking for a motion to approve and authorize the chairperson to execute the termination of Third Amendment to Water Service Enhancement Agreement with Waukee. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
And second, any comments or questions on item 3E? Hearing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Moines.
Yes.
All right, so item 3F is request permission to establish the date of a public hearing for the City of Des Moines easement for Des Moines River Levee Alterations Phase B as the date of the June 2021 board meeting. Ted?
Graham, the title of this item is a little misleading, or the title of their contract, the Des Moines River Levee Alteration Phase B project. That's their project. This easement is along the Raccoon River here in Waterworks Park, but it's all part of that project. What we're doing today, or we're requesting the board to do today, is just establish the public hearing for next month, at which time we would intend to grant them an easement. This easement is really just for access to an area along the North Riverbank under the MLK Bridge. We do own a very narrow strip of land along the north riverbank there between the river and the railroad tracks. That is our property, and they need access along that strip to do some riverbank protection that they are going to do kind of in the vicinity of all the bridges there, the MLK Bridge and the Fluor Drive Bridge. So today we're simply asking the board to establish the date of the next meeting as the public hearing date.
So I'm looking for a motion to establish the date of the June 2021 board meeting as the date of public hearing for City of Des Moines easement for Des Moines River Levee Alterations Phase B and direct staff to publish notice as provided by law. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions on item 3F? Hearing and
Wait, just clarification. We own the levee, or we just own property along the levee
We just own property actually along the riverbank.
and run along the riverbank? Okay,
It's not part of the levee at all, Andrea, but they need access to their levee. And
Okay.
really the only access is along that narrow strip that we own. And so we're going to grant them access.
got it.
They're not actually going to do any work on our property, as I understand it. They just need to get in and out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Any other comments or questions? All right. I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Moines.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, this moves us right on to item 3G, request permission to issue purchase order for rehabilitation of lime sludge dewatering press equipment. Ted?
Graham, this is at least the third time that the board has heard about this project. At the last board meeting, we requested permission to purchase materials that we needed to rehab these presses. And then shortly after the board meeting, we realized, or it became apparent when the manufacturer came in and inspected the presses, that we needed to replace a significant component on one of those presses. And you will recall that I sent an email to the board letting them know that we needed to get that piece of equipment ordered. We did order it. It was a fairly substantial piece of equipment, the main beam on one of our dewatering presses, which cost a little over $215,000. So the board has authorized all of that expense to date, and now we're here today asking permission to issue a third purchase order to the manufacturer Evoqua, who manufactured our plate and frame presses and has given us a quote for installing and replacing all of the component parts that we have purchased to allow rehabilitation of our 4 lime sludge dewatering presses. So that's the point of this action item today, Graham, is to authorize staff to issue that purchase order to Evoqua for rehab of the presses using those materials that we have recently purchased.
So I'm seeking a motion to authorize staff to issue a purchase order to Evoqua Water Technology LLC in the amount of $171,016 for the field service necessary to install the repair and replacement parts for rehabilitation of the existing lime sludge dewatering press equipment in the lime sludge dewatering facility. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
And we got a motion and a second. Any comments or question about lime sludge dewatering? Hearing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Moines.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, now item 3H, a little good news here. As a reward for hard work done in the past, we don't see a need to have a closed session right now, and I'll let Ted look at Sue. I think Sue just ran out of the office. I'll let Ted explain kind of where we are and why we made this decision.
Yeah, thank you, Graham. I think the board is well aware that we finished our discussions with the micro group. We published the document and shared that out. We've received a short list of questions back, and we have scheduled a meeting to discuss those questions. So that meeting is forthcoming, and that meeting is scheduled with all of our metro partners. Parallel to that effort, we have been continuing to work on the open issues that remained in the outcomes document. And I think it's safe to say at this point that the process is moving along as expected. We're in the process of putting things together in a way that we think can bring this thing to closure. And we're actually optimistic that we can bring things to closure in the near term and be in a position to at least begin developing some sort of an agreement. So Graham or Diane, we were involved in the meeting recently. Anything you would add to that overview?
Diane?
No, I think that does it.
You know, all I'll say is, and I know this will make Joel and others as happy as it does me. I mean, I think we're nearing the end of having to have closed sessions. We may have 1 or 2 more to do some details, but I am optimistic that we're going to be at a point pretty soon where we can be talking about the 2080 in an open session because we're getting so close. And so that's good news, and I know reassuring, should be reassuring. Any questions or comments from the board, Sue?
Yes, just to make sure that the board knows everything that's going on. The Wednesday morning meetings at 8 a.m. We have not had the last meetings or the meetings the last 2 weeks. We have decided to have another one tomorrow morning. And again, this is just with West Des Moines and Urbandale, but it's the first time we have met back since the document was issued. I think that is correct, Ted. Keep me honest.
That's correct, Sue. You are correct.
And we haven't really had a reason to meet, but now that a couple of questions are coming in and we're getting closer to that date for all the regional customers, it's kind of more of I'd call it a logistics planning, how we're going to handle the meeting. Would you agree, Ted and Diane?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to characterize it, Sue. It's an opportunity for us to touch base on that outcomes document and the feedback that we've got, which has frankly been fairly limited. But it's time for that.
Great, thanks.
And
Joel?
I'm glad to hear there's been some good progress, and we're feel good about where we are. Obviously, we've shared the outcomes document with other municipalities and utilities. What about with the public and media? Has there been any effort so far to share this with the media? And it may be that just given the kind of economics and reality and fewer journalists these days, there might not be a lot of interest in it, but I still would like to see us make some outreach and make that available. Where do we stand in that regard?
Joel, you and I agree on this point, and I appreciate you bringing it up. I should have mentioned it. I think we're getting very close, and I agree with you that it's incumbent on us to be proactive in putting things out there for us, talking about this and explaining what we're proposing. Diane and Ted and I talked about this, whatever my days run together, I guess yesterday, believe it or not, with the idea being that we're not quite there yet because we haven't made decisions ourselves about some of these points. But I agree with you, Joel, that as soon as we come to some sort of agreement on some of these sticking points, if you will, we need to go to all of the parties, the media being one of them, but also make sure the city council, the mayor and the city council understand this and what we're proposing, the media, and also a broader public relations campaign where we talk to neighborhood groups and other interested parties. And so I hope that the next customer relations meeting, I think Ted will have I'm hopeful Ted will have some feedback for us, which will allow us to decide exactly what our next step is. And then as part of that is the public engagement campaign. But you're right, Joel, that's as soon as we have formulated what our stance is going to be on the 28E, but most particularly these sticking point topics, it's incumbent on us to go out and tell the story and not wait for people to ask us. Does that help you in any way?
Yeah, well said. I will add that I'm not sure I would wait until we have some kind of finalized deal or something more concrete before we start having conversations with the public at large and reporters and members of the media. It's newsworthy that we're working on this.
Yep.
Whether or not we have something hammered out yet or a proposal, it's important for the public to know that this is something we're working on. We're working towards a deal. We're having lots of constructive conversation with our regional partners, and I wouldn't want the first time the public to hear about this to be when we make a proposal. I think we need to, people need to know and kind of be broken into the idea that this is in the works.
Yeah,
and so
I
think
don't-
it's useful for us, for folks to know that, hey, this is being worked on.
Yep.
Maybe expect something more concrete in the coming weeks and months. And so I wouldn't want the first headline about this to be, deal put on the table. I think it's newsworthy that something's in the works.
That is excellent. That's an excellent point, Joel. And I hadn't said it that way, so I'm gonna change what I just said and agree with you. I think you're right. I think that would be a mistake for us to wait. The next time we get together is the customer relations meeting, and again, Ted will have some feedback to us. I think that, unless and if you disagree with this or anybody disagree with this, let me know. That may be the time for us to provide an update, if you will, who we've met with, what we've done, and what comes next. Heads up, this 2080, we expect this 2080 or whatever to be coming to you in the next few weeks or whatever we decide at that point.
And
I think that makes a
can I
lot of
say
sense.
something?
Please.
I agree, but I don't know that we should characterize it as the first time they've heard about it. There have been, there's been things in the paper about this, and I think in the update that goes out to all customers from Des Moines Waterworks, there's been pretty clear discussion of where we are in the process. And so, and we really haven't had any inquiries. So I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we've been working on this for a long time and that updates have been given along the way.
Indeed. I don't mean to imply that there haven't. Certainly anyone who's wanted to find out information about this has had the opportunity. I just think it's would behoove us to make a little effort to reach out and make sure we're making an effort to let people know that this is in the works. We've got a good story to tell. I mean, you and Sue and Ted and Amy have been really putting in the work, and I wouldn't, I think that's newsworthy, and folks in the community deserve to know that you guys have been working on this for a while, and we're getting closer. And I think that's a good story to tell.
Ted, could I make a suggestion on this? And that is that at the customer relations meeting, again, you'll have some time to get some feedback back. You can work with Jen and Melissa a little bit. They've put together a plan, but maybe we could talk about at that meeting what the public information process should be. Would that make sense to you, Ted?
Yeah, I think it does, Graham. I think that would be a good opportunity for us to talk as a group, or the board to talk as a group about what the next step should be, or what the steps should look like. We do have a plan ready. We've actually shared a little bit,
Yes, yeah.
but the feedback that we've gotten is, okay, when the story's ready, let us know. And but I do think that would be a good time. And I share Joel's perspective that we want to be the ones sharing the story, and we don't want it to be that, hey, it's all done. I share that perspective, but I also understand having answers to the questions before we share. So there's a balance there, and I think it'd be great discussion.
I appreciate that, and look forward to kind of hearing that discussion and that process, because I think this is a very complex project that we've been dealing with, and like Diane has pointed out, for many months, years, and it would be, I don't want to muddy or confuse the public with the information that we put out, and just be very succinct in what, maybe succinct isn't the right word, but being very clear with the information we share, and not making it more complicated than it needs to be.
Here you go.
Well said. And Ted, I'll just quickly add, I think you raised a good point that, we may be sharing this with folks, and they may say, well, not really interested in writing about it right now. It may not be the most, dynamic story. I don't know that it'll generate a lot of interest, but I think it's an important one, and I think we can make some effort to make sure the public is informed.
Agreed.
Diane or Sue, do you have anything else on that?
Can I ask kind of a process question? So at that meeting, will we hear kind of more of a staff recommendation? I know Melissa's been sitting in on all of our meetings, and I thought it was kind of to say, as the expert in the communications public relations field, that she and Laura would give us some ideas. I mean, that's what I was expecting, or are we going to, as a board, say, here's how we want to do it? I'm just unclear.
Sue, if I could, I would propose that we could take the comments from today and kind of the status. We've got some things ongoing this week, and based on the status of those through next Tuesday, planning is just, or customer relations is just a week from today. But based on the ongoing status there and the plans that we have in place, we could bring forward as staff some recommendations on how this should be, prosecuted in terms of public relations more broadly and specifically media communication, and then we could get feedback from the board. But I think it would be appropriate for us to bring some thoughts on a direction.
And if Graham and Joel, because this is kind of right up their alley as far as expertise, if they would have an opportunity to review it with staff so that, when it comes to us, we have not only the staff recommendation, but really the expertise from our board saying, this is a good comprehensive plan. I mean, that might be a nice way. This isn't the area of expertise that I have, and I'd much rather let everyone put their heads together. If, Joel knows the media, Gillette knows PR. Just an idea.
Yeah, I think we certainly want to take advantage of that expertise, but I do think it should be incumbent upon the staff to bring an idea or a plan. We can certainly, I would hope.
I feel like I've had a chance to give input with the staff and had some conversations in recent months about their strategy or our strategy regarding this. Ted, I would add, I would consider publishing the outcomes paper on our website, on the utilities website. I feel like it's a public document that should be on our website.
Understood.
That's a great point, because we had a folder. All of the documents from the regional discussions were always posted in that. And now that we're getting back into, making all of this public, maybe an updated version of that folder so people would always know where to go to get the latest information.
Yeah, I assume that folder's still out there, Sue. I know what you're talking about.
I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, so we could refresh it.
Anybody else have any comments on this process or the public information process, regionalization in general? I'll just say, Joel, I thank you for this, because I think you're right. Especially, all of us have been so involved in this, and we kind of expect that, well, everybody's been following it and everybody's going to be up to date, and they're not. And so getting a push to remind us that it's our responsibility to make sure that people are informed and understand. Not only is it our responsibility, but if we wish to be successful in this regional process, there's a lot of education that has to be done between now and the time we sign the document. So it's the time to do that is now. So thank you for bringing that up, Joel. All right, anything else on this item? All right, I don't hear any, so we'll move on. That's all of our action items. Reports from the Planning Committee. Andrea?
Yes, sorry, I'm finding my mute button there. For those of you that weren't able to join the planning committee call, we talked about the replacement project of the filter backwash tank, with the original structure being built in 1945, and we've been extending its life as much as we can, but there's definitely a need now with it corroding to replace it. And that was a very interesting conversation. And then we also heard about the new InfraMap software that's really going to improve the efficiency of our staff out in the field doing their inspections and checks. So those were our two main items, and great to see progress being made on our planning front.
Thank you. Any finance and audit, Joel?
Not meet this month.
All right, well done. Customer relations. I think we've talked about it, but is there anything to add, Sue?
Nothing that I know of. We'll let you know if anything comes out of the meeting tomorrow morning, but I don't expect it to be something that the board would want to be aware of unless we have details on our meeting with all the regional customers.
Right, and as we just talked about, we'll talk about the public information campaign at the next customer relations meeting. Unknown whether we'll have to have or we'll want to ask for a closed meeting in that session, but we'll send out a note beforehand so that you can budget your time. Bill Stowe Memorial Committee, I don't have much new to report there, nor do I have from the Greater Des Moines Botanical Garden. Ted May, I think he had the opportunity to meet Kim Perez, the new CEO, so I don't know if you have anything to share, Ted.
Graham, Jen and I did meet with Kim Perez for the first time, the new CEO, and had a good discussion with them. We talked a little bit about our proposal to them for enhancing their educational services related to water quality, water conservation. It was a good discussion. They wanted to get back to us on our proposal, and so we haven't scheduled that follow-up, but we will be meeting with them again. Jen, is there anything that you would add to that summary?
I did follow up our meeting with, to set another meeting with some of the key people that we're talking with about doing some joint water quality education. And so I'm working to set up a meeting with Andrea Bolton and Amy Jennings. So the Park Foundation would be invited, the Science Center would be invited, the Botanical Garden, and Iowa Rivers Revival. So I'm getting those 5 or 6 organizations to talk about sort of a unified water quality education effort.
And can I suggest that maybe you include Amy Beatty in that meeting, Jen, because I think that will touch on what we're talking about for the Bill Stowe Memorial Committee.
Sure, and I got your email while you were in the middle of that meeting, and I didn't have it wasn't on my calendar, so I don't know what happened, but I'll circle back with you after that.
Okay, but as I say, you might want to include her in that talk because that'd be great.
Will do. I haven't sent out the doodle poll yet, so I will do that.
Great.
Can I ask a question? I know that the previous director left just about the time that there was going to be a conversation about the upcoming agreement and water usage. Where are we on that? That contract's got to be a year closer, and where are we on the services that we're providing? And did we ever have that conversation with them?
We have, well, where we are is that the 10-year in-kind service agreement that we originally entered with the Botanical Garden ends at the end of 2021. And we are in conversations with them about how to bring our responsibilities there to a close. We are looking at the possibility of creating sort of an exit ramp for them if they are willing to significantly enhance their educational offerings as it relates to water and water quality and water conservation. And that's specifically what we are meeting with them about right now, is just what are the opportunities there. I think that's going well. I think we're likely to get a dramatically enhanced educational offering from them, and we're also very likely to create a short exit ramp that will bring our responsibilities there to a close. So we're working on that, and at some point that will need to come to the board for your consideration sometime before the end of the year.
Sounds good. I just wasn't sure with Stephanie leaving how much of that conversation continued. That was my question.
We continue to work on it, Sue, but last week was really the first time we'd had an opportunity to meet with the director, and she's not quite up to speed on it yet, but we brought her along, and I think we'll get there pretty quickly.
And I'm hoping, Ted, that any exit ramp that you talk about has declining amounts. I mean, I think there was an issue with this contract that it just kept the same amount and then just dropped off the cliff. It makes it really difficult to plan your budget when something like that leaves a really large hole.
You are exactly right, Diane. And yeah, we're calling it an exit ramp for a reason. It's going to decline pretty rapidly. At least that's our proposal. We're working with them, and Kim is in a little bit of a difficult spot being brand new and not understanding
Sure.
that. And that it's going to leave a big hole in her budget. But the staff has been aware. Hopefully they've been planning. And hopefully we can come to a conclusion that works for them and works for us.
Thank you.
Ted and I had our first conversation about, this topic before the pandemic, is when we first met with the garden. And obviously the pandemic slowed things down for everybody. Stephanie's departure then slowed things down significantly for the garden. But Ted and I continued to communicate with them to the fact that they needed to start looking at their budgets, starting with their annual budget that starts in July, so that they begin to realize that number's not going to stay the same. Diane, I mean, that's the one message that we wanted to tell them, is that that number was going to decline, and that's what Ted is working on. So the reason we met with them so early, back in 2020, was we didn't want this to be the surprise. And even with all that's gone on, we, thanks to Ted, we've continued to send that message over there.
I think the other piece of this was whether or not the restaurant, the Trellis, pays for its water. Did we get an answer to that?
Amy can hop in and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we've determined that they are not currently separately metered. And
That's
so-
correct.
Okay, thank you. So creating a separate metering thing there may be easy, it may be impossible. We don't know that for sure yet. But I think ultimately the goal is for the garden to pay for all of its water. And that hasn't, honestly, Diane, been a focus of our discussions with them yet. Where our focus is, you need to start paying for your water next year, some portion of it. And if that portion equates to what Trellis uses and the garden, the conservatory is getting its water for free still, so be it. But then as we ramp that down, ultimately our expectation is that they're paying for all of their water. As I said, we haven't all come to consensus on that yet, but that's been the message that we've delivered to them. And it has not yet included, or at least to this point, included a separation there. It's just you pay for all your water.
But that is a good point with the new leader in charge. I want to make sure that they know. I mean, feels like we're getting into another zoo situation here. And just as
Yeah.
long as Trellis knows you haven't been paying for water, there is going to be a change. You're not separately metered. It could impact you. I mean, who knows what kind of contract they have with the botanical garden? It might be something they want to negotiate too. I would just hate to, take a business that's gone through a pandemic and then make it be a surprise to them. So
Yeah.
we owe the conversation to them as well, I would think.
Absolutely. I mean, this is all about a ramp, and bringing this along. I mean, my concern with the garden has been since day one, almost 10 years ago now, that there's a fundamental thing that we don't want to provide free water to a zoo or a garden. But the garden is a significant user of water that could grow. I mean, they have a pond. They've just expanded into new acreage. They have a waterfall. They have a lot of use for water. And as I say, there's the fundamental question that we don't provide free water, number one, and number two, especially for a heavy user. And so this ramping down is very important. But also, as important, and maybe even for Ted and Amy, ramping down the outflow of dollars is important too. So both of those things have to happen. Any other questions on the garden or comments? Thank you, Ted, for that update.
Welcome.
Park Foundation.
So I was unable to attend their most recent meeting. So anything that I would be able to share is presented in the attached notes. I think the most important thing, though, to direct your attention to and to give some consideration or to think about is how the new COVID easing of restrictions are going to play a role in the ability for the Park Foundation to put on more performances and events at their location. I know they did do the ballet recently. That was a success and have quite a few events on the docket. So with the lifting of, did Des Moines lift all of their mandates or just the mask mandate? Does anybody know as far as public gathering and all that?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I do not know that either, Andrew, sorry.
Well, but either way, so I guess I'll be interested to see how things continue to unfold with the Park Foundation as COVID restrictions ease. Other than that, I will defer to Joel, if you were in on that meeting and have anything else to share.
I'll add one update, and Mike might have to help me out. The item about, was it the 28E with the Park Foundation regarding maintenance, in which the utility is going to credit back some maintenance costs that we overcharged them. So it's a good deal for the Park Foundation, but some of the foundation members hadn't really bothered to read the agenda or the contract itself, and so they weren't comfortable on voting on it, and so they punted to the next month's meeting. Mike advised the foundation board that probably wouldn't be a problem. The timing shouldn't be an issue, and so I have every expectation that the foundation will accept that amendment to the 2080, but just delayed another month. Is that about on track, Mike?
That seems like a bullseye to me, Joel. I don't think we're going to have a problem next month. There was just some board members that certainly hadn't had a chance to review those forbearance agreements. So I got my fingers crossed, but I think in June you'll be hearing from us again on our side of these agreements.
Great. Anything else, Park Foundation? The only thing I'll add is, and remind people of, we kind of went through a year of our first concerts there at the park, and noise had been an issue for some people. I wouldn't be surprised as concerts come back that some of us get calls about noise. And if you do, I know that Sam Carroll at the Park Foundation and others they're always well attuned and listening to this. And so feel free to reach out and pass those people along. You know, if you get complaints, to pass people along or be involved in it however you want. Jen Terry, External Affairs.
If I might just take one
Please.
minute here, Graham, to introduce this. I asked Jen during her External Affairs time slot today to give us a quick update on the strategic planning process that is ongoing. I think you'll see three important things here today. One is that a lot of work has already been done. The consultant has been doing a great deal of listening and checking and following and reading and getting a sense. Number two, we're really getting ready to launch our community engagement process with our community advisory group. Got a great group there. Our benchmarking utilities, we've got some great utilities who agreed to provide benchmarks for us. And then with our staff engagement. And then three, I think it's amazing the plan that they have to provide opportunity for not only people who we've reached out to, but anyone in the community, staff, retirees, community members, board members, anyone who has an interest in providing input to the process will be able to take a survey. But I asked Jen to give us a quick overview because I want to keep the board up to speed and answer any questions you have on the process. So with that brief introduction, Jen, you want to take us through that?
Sure. Thanks, Ted.
I think, Michelle, you might have to stop
Yeah.
sharing so that Jen can share hers.
Ted, would you let me know if you can see my screen once I get started here? How's that look?
We can see the preview. There you go. That looks perfect.
Okay, good. Um, So I just have a few slides. I think Ted hit on a lot of the exciting stuff, but it's going to be kicking off for real next week for public view. So we wanted to be sure that you were ready for that. I suspect, like me, many of you in your careers have been through really good strategic planning processes and some that weren't so great. So our vision for this one is we're going to see this as a roadmap of how we prioritize initiatives, resources, and projects and things. A big picture document that's going to be it's going to be a living document. We'll review it over the next 5 years. Each year, we'll see how we're coming along with our objectives and our goals, adjust as necessary. And our hope is that this will become a real prioritizing and leadership document for the utility. It will include a vision statement, a mission statement, and then goals with performance objectives. And then it's going to be implementation plans with areas of focus. So it's going to be comprehensive, and it's going to, I think you'll see, and I think you'll hopefully be excited about the ways that we're going to get input on this plan. Things that we're going to be talking about during the process will be everything that you see there, from workforce needs, including what's on the horizon in terms of our workforce. What's our culture like here? What do people see us? How do they see us in the community? How do our own employees and retirees see us? And then how do we manage our financial resources and do capital planning and such that it would be in alignment with our strategic plan? So here's the process. HDR has been doing a lot of behind the scenes work for the past couple of months. Actually, they've been gathering data and organizing stakeholder groups and creating our social media strategy. A big shout out to Laura Sarcone and Melissa Walker, our PR in-house and out-house consultants, about our strategic planning process, because we've had multiple meetings with their social media team about how to engage and so on. So there's been a lot of background work right now. So the HDR team has been conducting social listening to understand what people, groups, and organizations are saying about us in social media, mass media, and in stories. HDR has collected demographic information by doing a community assessment to understand who our customers are and what strategies would work best for engaging with them and the general public. We also understand that there still may be some significant hesitation to meet in large public groups due to COVID concerns. So much of our planning and data collection will be online. If possible, we might have a couple of in-person meetings as the summer progresses. A benchmarking analysis is underway. It's exciting. Our senior management team identified 4 drinking water utilities that we view as industry leaders. And so HDR is in the process of conducting these meetings, and they're pretty significant. They're an investment of time on the part of those utilities, and they were all enthusiastic about helping us out. And so they're meeting with them to help understand how they do their strategic planning, and then some just overviews of how they run their utilities in ways that we might want to think about doing as we do this process. Those utilities are Water One in Kansas, Denver Water, Phoenix Water, and Louisville Water. Again, in the next few days, we're going to go live. So all of this background work that's been happening is going to become available to the public. So the ways that we're going to go live in the next few days would be our community advisory group, or the CAG. The community advisory group is comprised of 17 members, and it has representation from our employees, from labor, from community leaders. We had fantastic response. Every person that Ted invited to be on our community advisory group said an enthusiastic yes, and that they were honored to be a part of it. So Andrea is representing the board on the CAG, and so thank you for doing that, Andrea. And their first meeting is this week, so that's exciting. HDR will be facilitating all of those sorts of meetings and collecting data from those. As of next week, we're going to launch our new web presence, and it's created solely by HDR for the purpose of communicating information and then collecting survey results. So it's twofold. They took our thinkdownstream.com URL, and their art team and graphics team have turned it into a web page that's just for our strategic planning process. So it's going to be a combination of explaining and getting people excited that we think enough of the future of our utility, and that their input that this is what we're doing. We're doing this strategic planning process. And then we're going to be interjecting little surveys and polls for them to respond to. And we're going to start collecting data that way. Social media ads, again, designed by HDR, will start launching. The ads and the posts will start launching next week that will drive the public and employees and retirees and all of you to this special website. A special survey is going to be emailed to employees and retirees, and that's going to collect anonymous responses to a special survey for that sector. And then we're going to do a virtual listening tour where we're going to collect more responses from the public at one, and then from employees and retirees at another one, those who didn't get a chance to do the email one. So between now and August, Ted and the senior management team are going to meet several times to assess what we're learning through all of these many channels. HDR will meet with us and help us understand what we're hearing. And from all of that, they're going to pull it all together. We'll start creating the bones of our own strategic plan. And then by September, we'll have our completed strategic plan. These are the kinds of things that our customers, employees, all of you, and the public will be thinking about. What do we do well? What could we do better in all of those areas? They'll be ranking those in order of importance, and then they'll have a chance to flesh those out a little bit. This is going to help us plan for things like the political sphere. What might we need to think about when talking with legislators and policy in the next few years? What's our culture like? Is it appealing to a diverse workforce? That's all of that assessment and data is going to help us plan for these major forces for the utility. And then as a trustee, how can you help? Starting next week, you could start engaging with thinkdownstream.com. You'll be seeing more information about that. We encourage you to have your network participate by sending them to the spots that you'll see there at the thinkdownstream.com website. And then we'll also be launching it on social media, so you can share in any of those spaces as well. That's my update. We do go live starting next week. So follow us and share us, and be sure to provide input. And we appreciate your time. Thank you. And Andrea, thanks for being on the CAG especially.
I have a question. How does this, and I think we've all said we need to do this, we need to go ahead with this, but have you thought about how this coordinates with the regionalization discussion? Because some of those things, if you go back 1, 2, 3 slides.
Hang on a sec here. Which slide?
This one,
okay.
this one,
This one? Okay.
that one.
All right.
No, the one that you, before this, that
Okay.
you had up there.
This one?
No, after,
after
keep
that?
going, keep going, keep
Okay.
going.
There you go,
There,
that
there's
one.
Okay.
stop. If we're talking about affordability, quality, resource delivery, meeting demand, I mean, those really are what we're talking about regionalizing. And
Some-
investment. So all I'm asking is, I mean, we're talking about media, how do we deal with media and public relations and those things with respect to regionalization. And then we have this effort going on where we're talking with people about all those things. How are we going to keep those separate, or does one become, do we start talking about regionalization in this, or?
You know, Diane, it's a great
This is a
question, and
perfect-
I think ideally we wouldn't be doing these things at exactly the same time. And in fact, we delayed the launch of the strategic planning initiative by
Yeah.
3 months, hoping
Yeah.
we would move further along.
I know. And
Regionalization
like I said,
process.
it's such a chicken and egg thing. And I'm in no way am I suggesting that we don't do this effort, because it's a long time coming, and I think we all agree it needs to be done. But I do think that we have to think through, and at least maybe have the discussion that in the minds of people as we do this, is it going to get tied up and confused with regionalization?
You know, I don't tend to think that it will get tied up and confused. I think that in our experience, our direct retail customers, people who get a bill from Des Moines Waterworks, assume they're Des Moines Waterworks customers, and people who get their water bill from Clive have no idea that their water comes from Des
Yeah.
Moines Waterworks. And so a lot of the community engagement and the the affordability and all of those things are very much focused on our direct retail customers, because those are the customers whose direct retail we control. It's more about, not more about, but there's a certainly a component in there about our direct customers who are Des Moines Waterworks customers, and also about how we serve the region in terms of our wholesale customers. We've got a couple of wholesale customer representatives on our community advisory group. And so the consulting team is very aware
Okay.
that we've got this regionalization question in the background, and we're working on that at the same time as we are working on our strategic plan. And they're going to help us chart that course. In some places it will be a fine line, in some places it won't.
Yeah.
But we're here where we are.
Yeah.
We need to move both initiatives forward, and we're going to try to do that in a way that's effective.
And I'm not asking us to solve this. I'm just saying we need to be mindful
Oh yeah.
of these things.
I think something to add or something to consider is that it's also the information that we receive back from the strategic plan and the information that we create from the strategic plan is going to put whoever is representing us on that regional board in a good position to know exactly how our customer base feels and thinks and perceives our actions, so that we would be able to execute with that kind of those guidelines or instructions in mind.
Good point. Yeah.
That's a great point. There are challenges, but there are also benefits to doing them concurrently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else on this item? Jen, thank you. Ted, I think your comments are next.
Yes, Graham, I do have a few comments today. First of all, I just want to remind the board from a COVID perspective, Des Moines Waterworks has recently lifted its mask requirements here in this building for employees who are fully vaccinated, and started allowing small groups of employees to gather. So we're moving in the direction of more normal activity. The office is going to open to the public on June 2nd, which is a Wednesday, the Wednesday after Memorial Day. We will be posting the doors indicating that we're following CDC guidelines and asking customers who aren't fully vaccinated to mask, with the expectation that some will follow that guidance and some won't. But we're hopeful that all of our folks who are working with customer contact will be fully vaccinated by that time. And so we won't be putting them at risk, but we are moving out of our COVID protocols slowly but surely here over the next couple of months. I wanted to just share with the board that the recent rains have helped in terms of the drought conditions, but they certainly haven't reversed the drought conditions. The river is still flowing about 25% of what would be typical for this time of year. And so we're hopeful that we continue to get timely rains and that we won't end up with extremely low river levels in June and July, accompanied with very high demand. So a little bit of breathing room here in the last couple of weeks, but still something that we're watching. And if we get into challenging times again, we'll probably launch additional social media reminders for folks. And we're hopeful that we won't have to get into restrictions or shortage planning or any of those kind of things, but just want to make you aware that the river is still much lower than it would normally be, and something that staff is keeping an eye on. I want to put a plug in for next week's planning committee meeting, which will immediately precede the customer relations committee meeting. We're going to talk about the urban deer management task force. We've had some requests from the task force themselves and from the city and the county and some residents wanting us to rejoin the task force and allow hunting, deer hunting in Waterworks Park or in Waterworks properties again. And so we're going to share a presentation with the board next week at planning in advance of making that decision. And we're also going to talk a little bit about an RFP that we plan to issue yet this week for a preliminary engineering on expansion of the Saylorville water treatment plant. So we're continuing our move towards expanding capacity. You might find that interesting as well. And speaking of committee meetings, just a reminder that in June at least, and for the foreseeable future, I guess, committee meetings will continue to be virtual. I think that was Joel's suggestion originally, and everyone seemed to embrace that idea. So we'll be having virtual committee meetings in June. And as Graham has already mentioned, we will be in person for the board meeting for the first time in a long time next month. So those are my comments, Graham. I'll end it there.
Thank you, Ted. I don't know if anybody has anything else for the good of the cause. Before we adjourn, Ted and Diane and Michelle, I got 2 quick items after we adjourn that I need to ask you. So don't you guys hang up. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Oh, I
Second.
got a motion second and a third. All in-
Third.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
Have a nice Memorial Day weekend.
Oh yeah, everyone, thank you.
Happy holiday.
Bye.
I won't be back till the middle of next week. I don't know what documents need to be signed. I can sign them virtually, or if you maybe you can ask Diane to sign them if you would need somebody to sign them in person.
The only thing we have is that termination. I don't know how urgent that is. It's been a few years coming, so it's probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's several years behind. So Graham, I think we can wait till you get back.
All right, I'll sign that when I get back. And then Ted and I can't remember. I think I asked to move the chair vice chair meeting from this Friday to another date, and I think we were going to move it a week, but I still have it in my calendar.
Yeah, that's probably on me, Graham. I didn't get that moved, so that's the 28th. You want to just move it to
If
the,
it's fine with Diane, I mean, if we could do it on the 4th, that would be fine.
that's the day that Secretary Nag is going to be here.
Oh,
which
right.
is not a problem for me, but I don't know if you want to have a meeting and then a break and then another meeting.
That's fine with, I don't have any problem with that because we were, yeah, I don't have any problem with that. If
Okay.
Diane's available.
Are you okay with moving that to the 4th, Diane?
At what time?
Noon is when it was scheduled on the 28th. We could do it, I could do it at 11, if that would be better.
Yeah, I'm free all morning, so.
I could even do it at 10. You want to let me know, Diane, if
Yeah, no, 10 would be better for me.
10 o'clock, okay. I'm
Do we
gonna-
want to, would it be easier if we just did it virtually too?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, 10 o'clock virtual, and Ted, you'll send out a notice.
I will. In fact, I'm going to do it before I get up out of this chair, so
Thank you.
I get it right.
Thanks for that. The only other thing I have, I did work a little bit on that population weighted rationale, and I'll send that, you'll probably get that from me tomorrow.
Okay, that sounds good. Amy did heavy lifting on that letter already and has sent me a draft with a whole for you and I to populate with thoughts on population weighted voting. So,
I'll send that around tomorrow.
okay, that sounds great. And I'm hopeful to have something done on that this week that we could share and then maybe even get it out to
Awesome.
West Des Moines and Urbandale by Friday.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for hanging around.
Absolutely. Thank you.
See you guys.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Ruth.